Yeah, so may I introduce you, Ralph?
Oh, it would be a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ralph Luís is a composer, music theorist, an educator who is passionate about exploring, supporting, and understanding new musical expression. His compositions seek out meeting points between sonorous music and arresting noise, alternative tuning and timbre, and the roles of performer and audience. His research often centers on inclusive spaces and engaging less discussed music and technology. Louis' compositions have been performed at festivals and conferences throughout the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, France, Italy, and Australia, including SCI National Student Conference, Electronic Music Midwest, CIAMUS, College Music Society, Radio Frenia, Glasgow, Boston Microtonal Society, the International Conference on Technologies for Music Notation and Representations, TENOR, and the Music for People in
Thingamajigs.
Thingamajigs
It
Festival.
was a wonderful
Or-
West Coast festival. Homemade instruments. It was wonderful.
He holds a DMA in music composition from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and MFA in electronic music and recorded media, and a MA in music composition from Mills College, a BM in music composition from Oberlin Conservatory, and a BA in classical civilization from Oberlin College. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Dr. Ralph Luís. Please, all yours.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. And I'd like to echo what Todd said a few minutes ago about being really grateful to have this virtual option to participate. It's really great to be here. And hello, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Ralph, and today I'll be talking to you about Johnny Reinhardt, a multifaceted microtonal maven. And so during the last 4 decades, Johnny Reinhardt has played many roles as he's championed alternatively tuned music in community spaces throughout New York City and beyond with his American Festival of Microtonal Music as a bassoonist, microtonal theorist, composer, musicologist, conductor, festival promoter, teacher, fundraiser, raconteur, and more. This research project began during the pandemic when Reinhardt was planning a retirement from professional engagements in summer 2021. As might have been expected from someone so energized by microtonal spaces, he eventually made other plans. Even so, it serves as a point in time for us to look back on and celebrate the efforts and achievements of this quintessential American experimental musician. To start, here's a 2-minute excerpt of Reinhardt performing his bassoon solo composition Dune at Jazz Institute Berlin at MicFest from 2016. So I'll play about a 1-minute sample of this. I'll stop there, but I love hearing him play. And so, as is fairly obvious from listening, Reinhardt's Dune shows off his performance skills as much as his interest in composition. He virtuosely blends traditional expressivity, microtonal inflection, and accent techniques. More importantly, performances like this by Reinhardt shows the embodied understanding of microtonal concerns he brings into more theoretical domains. But when lecturing, such as during his visits with Furman University, his nuanced hearing and ability to physically demonstrate on bassoon and recorder are powerful means to keep his larger points deeply musical. Born in Brooklyn in 1956, Reinhardt attended John Dewey High School after completing a bachelor's degree in bassoon performance at University of North Carolina School for the Arts. He returned to New York, studying bassoon as a graduate student at Manhattan School of Music and ethnomusicology at Columbia University. According to his bio on the Stereo Society's website, the academic work he pursued during these graduate studies stoked a lifelong interest in microtonality. And so, for example, having studied at the Manhattan School of Music, he became interested in developing the bassoon compositionally and began to experiment with the use of microtones. His appreciation of microtonality developed during his fellowship at Columbia University when he began to conduct extensive research into microtonal music and other cultures. This created his belief that all music is microtonal, end quote. The entry about Reinhardt from a dictionary of the avant-garde describe him as follows: one of the avant-garde subterranean music impresarios in the American tradition of Henry Cowell. He has for decades produced extraordinary concerts of the American Festival of Microtonal Music. The entry also emphasizes his exploratory bassoon playing and his work to realize Ives' unfinished Universe Symphony, which will be discussed in more detail in this presentation. The Historical Dictionary of Modern and Contemporary Classical Music also makes note of Reinhardt's contributions, including as the editor of the journal Pitch, his compositions and concerts of microtonal and just intonation music as he put together that he put together throughout the U.S. and around the world. Although the journal Pitch has been defunct for many, many years, the impact on upcoming alternative tuning focused musicians such as the harmonicist Jacob A. Barton is fondly remembered as a critical resource about microtonal works and techniques. And perhaps more importantly, from Pitt's journal, Reinhardt published microtonal fingerings there in the 1980s and elsewhere later on for wind instruments, including bassoon. These fingerings for quarter tones, fifth tones, and more continue to be highlighted by the International Double Reed Society on their website, giving special thanks to Reinhardt for them. They continue to be cited in scholarly research as well, including Arno Seen's 2019 doctoral thesis, Extended Bassoon Techniques Filling the Pedagogical Gap. These fingerings are a lasting example of how Reinhardt's hands-on experience as a performer blends with his advocacy and theory work. Additionally, Reinhardt uses the name Pitch for his record label and the YouTube channel that currently archives videos of his works and related American Festival of Microtonal Music performances. As the most comprehensive container for Reinhardt of his many activities, the American Festival of Microtonal Music, AFMM for short, deserves special attention. Founded by Reinhardt in 1981, its activities have included annual concerts bearing titles such as Microfest and Microthon. AFMM's concerts routinely feature performances of many composers' works, including Carrillo, Ivor Darragh, George Friedrich Haas, Lou Harrison, Lamont Young, Varese, Peter Thorkelson, Chris Weisfeld, Haba, John Cattler, Harry Parch, and John Cage. AFMM has also frequently been the means through which Reinhardt has actualized his personal projects, with longtime board members such as Ted Koons, Joshua Pierce, and Glenn Cornett, and Svetlana Bukvich. An example of how Reinhardt and AFMM work in tandem can be seen regarding the Universe Symphony. While the realization of Ives' titanic unfinished work was Reinhardt's long-term goal for about a decade, the AFMM Orchestra is credited with the premiere at Lincoln Center's Alice Tully Hall in 1996. Similarly, Reinhardt's books, such as Bach and Tuning, where he builds a case for Werkmeister 3 is the tuning to use when analyzing and performing Bach. The Ives Universe, a Symphony Odyssey, where he documents his experience realizing and performing the symphony, and even books about non-music topics appear at AFMM's website for sale, or have done so in the past. Some have been more formally published since. Reinhardt has has also composed several polymicrotonal works for large ensemble, that is, multiple tunings throughout a work, and at most times alongside one another. One of those is 1997's Odysseus, which features cellist Dave Egger as Odysseus and 55 other performers, each with a different tuning throughout the 49-minute work. Many of Reinhardt's compositions employ scripted improvisation, as in this work, or use conduction techniques of the visionary composer-conductor Butch Morris. In Odysseus, Reinhardt uses a generalized script based on Homer's Odyssey and choreography by Christine Coppola to unleash the improvisations that fulfill the work. In this 2-minute clip from just after the work begins, a portion of the ensemble rises up as Dave Egger's cello playing, who's personifying Odysseus, marshals them to sea. And as they proceed, a lonely Trojan survivor, portrayed by Flux Quartet violinist Tom Chu, engages Odysseus in combat. So we'll just take a brief moment with that. And if people saw someone wearing a white cloak, that was Reinhardt, who is portraying Homer moving around, doing the conduction throughout the space. And so let me just make sure that we find the right slide. So here are some more images from Odysseus. So there's people up in the rafters. There's people all throughout the church space. In addition to the sheer number of participating musicians, it's interesting to note that the performers involved include AFM board members, and as well as people who have gone on to acclaim in contemporary music beyond AFMM. with Odysseus, it demonstrates some commonalities in Reinhardt's output. One is that tuning and general instructions are used to guide his compositions. Two, microtonality, and later on his 128 tuning that uses all the available pitches from the first 8 octaves of the overtone series. Either of these concepts is meant to erase traditional notions of dissonance, allowing all available pitches to participate. Three, that projects can often be large scale and draw on existing media for extra grandeur, but there's still often room for Reinhardt's showmanship and puckish sense of humor. I mean, that stumble as Tom Chu falls away is hysterical. So, of the many musical endeavors that Reinhardt has pursued, perhaps nothing, he's proud of nothing as much as his work realizing Ives' Universe Symphony, beginning with examining copies of the work while visiting the home of Lou Harrison and Bill Kolvig in 1986. Reinhardt discovered an ideal project, a long lost, perhaps forever lost symphonic work, full of microtonal mysteries by an acclaimed but underperformed American experimentalist. Reinhardt would spend 3 years working with sketches to realize the work, and several more facilitating the premiere at Alice Tully Hall, communicating with the Ives Society, and the eventual premiere on June 6, 1996. This correspondence with the Ives Society included them specifying that Reinhardt's work would be called a realization rather than a completion. Reinhardt has taken that in stride, proudly explaining that he has not added a note to Ives' music. The Ives Society has also reviewed the realization and gave it approval for performance before the 1996 premiere. Reinhardt's approach to the Universe Symphony is to treat it as if it's essentially complete, but in need of ordering. Rather than movements, the work is organized by Reinhardt as a series of fragments, preludes, and sections. This realization clocked in at 56 minutes at the premiere and 64 minutes on the eventual studio recording. This diverges from Larry Austin's completion of the work, which includes newly composed music by Austin, which clocks in at about 35 minutes. Besides its length, the most notable and controversial part of Reinhardt's realization is how it's explicitly microtonal. It uses the quarter tones indicated throughout the work's drafts, but infers that the work is in Pythagorean tuning based on Ives' inquisitiveness, Ives' father's familiarity with writing on tuning systems, and the enharmonic spellings present in parts of the score written in, not on the actual note heads. And so Zachary Lyman's doctoral research about the Universe Symphony includes a discussion of the different approaches to this. This led him to interviewing Reinhardt as well as Austin. Despite the time spent on the topic in Lyman's dissertation, a sense of reconciling the issues each person brought to the Universe Symphony remains unresolved. Reinhardt remains adamant about the microtonal implications of Ives' work. A related point of contention is that the tempos of the work, in this case, Austin contends that the tempos are far more variable than the single quarter note equals 30 indicated 30 indication that Reinhardt cites in the sketches. I recommend reading both interviews as well as the one with David Porter about the Universe Symphony. With all of that being said, the amount of effort and organization, time, and intentionality that Reinhardt brought to this large-scale project is staggering. Reinhardt continues to promote his realization. He returned to the work to do a studio recording, included the production of it in 2006. As this talk concludes, I'd like to mention the current state of Reinhardt's work. I ended an earlier version of this talk suggesting that while Reinhardt is retiring in many senses this year, it would not be surprising to me, even if in that state, a new, bold, idiosyncratic microtonal project from him would come hurtling toward us. And indeed, such things have occurred, both in terms of his scholarship and development community and microtonal spaces. In March 2020, Furman University officially received Reinhardt's personal archive and AFMM's archive. Reinhardt describes them in combination as the largest microtonal archives in the world. Importantly, it was through the stewardship of Furman University instructional technologist Michael Vick that this happened. For an artist like Reinhardt that is mostly operated outside of academic spaces, this making of space act by Furman is not just a symbolic act, but one of a material allyship. Alongside this, I'd also like to say that finding ways to support access to documentation of artistry of practicing musicians is an achievable and meaningful action to add to those activities. I hope that this powerful impact of Reinhardt's work by Furman and Vick inspires you to consider similar actions with other musicians who fall outside of typical academic activity. And so Reinhardt has continued to devote his time to Ives Universe Symphony in the form of 2 books, The Transcendental Tuning of Charles Ives in 2023, and Ives Universe, mentioned earlier, now published, A Symphonic Odyssey in 2024. Here, Reinhardt lays out the strongest case for his realization choices, to date, providing careful commentary on the materials found in the sketches and pre-compositional materials. In this more structured space, Reinhardt's explanations of his process are aided with exhaustive details and score examples from Ives' work. And so the American Festival of Microtonal Music has also found a new life, presenting a weekly series of virtual talks entitled the Microtonal University. A 4th season began back in October, and it persists to even now during the summer. They were just they're still doing presentations. During that time, Dave Egger, who we saw earlier from the 90s, came on and performed Reinhardt's Asteroid Belt in the 256 tuning, which is the 9th octave tuning. And in the past, when I visited the space, it seemed like a really welcoming and steady place to build ideas and learn things together. He runs it, we told, Meshik, and has guests including Sevish, Stephen Weigel, and Stephen James Taylor. And so, to conclude, I just wanted to say that as a younger composer, I was always inspired by Reinhardt's accomplishments, as well as his drive to further understand the complicated intersections of tunings, histories, and theories, and how we make music as a community. He doesn't just represent the microtonal part of the American experimental tradition, but the part that is ever questing and utopian, that asks, why not? It's the kind of music that points for the fences the way that Babe Ruth would, with all the joy, love, and tenacity that can be mustered. And while many musicians dream big, Reinhardt has seemingly always found a way through community building and his many musical skills to deliver on the things he's dreaming of. If an oversimple summary about Harry Parch was that he was one of the finest builders of microtonal instruments, in that way we can say Johnny Reinhardt is one of the finest builders of microtonal community. And so thank you so much for spending some time with me. I'd love to continue the conversation with you. My email is here on the screen, rallewis@millikan.edu. Thank you for your time. And I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much. Very good timing, actually. We are 5 minutes ahead, so it's more time for discussion. It's actually even 10 minutes because we have in total until 4:15, so we have 20 minutes for the questions. So I would like to ask in the group if anyone would like to go ahead first.
I could ask a very simple question, and I should probably know this, but does Johnny live in Berlin now, or is he back in America?
He is on the West Coast now. So yeah, so now he's over in California. So when he retired, he went down to Florida, and then he moved out west. I think it's the San Diego area.
Okay. Yeah, I lost track, so I guess he's looking
He's
for a place
in the
to settle.
Moreno Valley, which is not San Diego, but it's pretty far east. He calls it the middle of nowhere, but it's it's probably closer to LA.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention about the journal pitch for the International Microtonalist. The table of contents are visible online. There were only 4 issues produced through the years. I think it was 1986 to 1990, and but those are indexed on a website that is not actually Johnny's website, but it's called pitch.zentonic.org. I can put that in the chat, and you can see like which you might, if you're interested in acquiring. But then you have to actually email. You can't order it there. You have to actually email Johnny separately and request. He has, to my knowledge, I know he has the 4th issue in PDF form, which has all of the fingerings, and that's a very popular request. And so anyway, that I'll put that in the chat. Thank you.
So much.
Wonderful, wonderful presentation.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Colleen.
Any questions? Otherwise, I would like to mention we had here, of course, that was 2019, 6 years ago. Johnny Reinhard was making an amazing presentation, an amazing concert, and he was really active. He's always been very active. I guess now with family issues, he moved. We knew he moved to Florida first, went down, and then he moved to the other coast. And with the Microtonal University, we know he's very, very busy lately. So I have lost a little bit of touch with him personally. Also, being, if you are a composer, and Ralph, how busy things can get. Yeah, so you mentioned this Microtonal University, because I lost track myself a little bit. So it's going to be the 4th edition of Microtonal University.
It's already been. This has been the 4th one. Probably number 5's going to launch real soon.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, but this is 1-year program or 2 years? I can't remember.
So basically, so I don't know the exact model that's being used at the moment, but so typically these are meets on Sundays, usually on Zoom, as far as I understand it. I think we told handles the technical side of it, and different guests come in. People work on different projects. They recently did a concert of participant music, but it's really neat. You get it's obviously not this conference, but imagine if we got, maybe, let's say I'm picking people from the chat here, if we got Ryan in this week, and we got Colleen in 2 weeks from now, and Todd to come in 3 weeks from, and just this slow, steady stream of awesome people coming in, sharing about their experiences, interacting with Johnny. Johnny has also presented on his topics. He has a new research interest on quantum and music,
Okay.
which I've only caught a bit about. There's an interesting dynamic there. I think it's really kind of found its own groove after what I think initially was kind of going to be one thing, but now it's kind of found itself, and I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's a tuition base, so ordinarily you have to sign up and then for the season, but he also is flexible, and you can some people like to just request and sometimes he'll put the link up for a special session on Facebook, and then anybody can plug in, but right now it's on hiatus. This is the shortest season this year. It started during the pandemic, and there were so many people at that time, and I guess it was a real lifesaver, and it didn't stop. So he's kept it going. It's not as populated because now everybody's actually going out and making music out there, so it's a good thing. But he's had some amazing guests, and I forget now how long ago, but it maybe 3 years. He had Lamont Young, and that was pretty mind blowing.
Who? Excuse me, Colin?
Lamont Young.
Wow, 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 wow. I also lost track. I used to, I think at some point I mean, he stopped sending me the links because it's very difficult that I find a couple of hours. I participated giving a lecture or giving a talk a few years ago, and then I tried to follow as much as I could. I tried to visit sometimes, but I couldn't do this regularly. And at some point, he understood I was writing a big opera PhD and these kind of things, and so it
Yeah.
was.
I'm actually wondering if the Lamont visit was like the one that I saw with Brooklyn with Brooklyn College, where Lamont was trying to sell out. It was trying to sell the new box set that he was releasing because it was like this. It kind of coincided with that, and I saw the Brooklyn College talk. It was just I guess around 22, and it was really cool. But it was also like and buy the album. Happy to be here. Buy the album. Did I mention that I'm legendary? Buy the album. It was kind of awesome. So I wonder if it was around that time. Either way, it's super cool. I'm glad that he was there.
Mhm.
I had was able to download the session, but I'm not sure it was a persistent link. Whether you could actually go back and hear it, but that's just one of many, and some of the sessions are very focused on certain composers, and it's a real informal for the most part, but rigorous presentations.
Definitely. And by the way, Ralph, I can't remember right now. Could you give us an update? When was the last time the American Festival for Microtonal Music was celebrated?
So I think I think as far as I understand it, that it kind of was supposed to be there was supposed to be a so literally this project started with him wanting to do like a farewell concert in like April 2021 and being super bummed that it was all like not going to happen. And here's someone who's extraordinary and what a like the pandemic's happening, what a shame to end things that way. So that's right, sort of getting involved. And so as far as I can tell, like it's sort of just kind of taken on a new life with this virtual thing with Microtonal University concerts through that. He's got a new book coming out about that's called Circular Reasoning. There's a lot of research projects. Things are are moving forward with that. Yeah, it's really cool because like it's the idea that he's the Swiss Army knife of Austrian Army knife of just all these different skills and talents to pursue a project. I think is a really fascinating and beautiful thing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did recommend checking out more of those large scale works. They're really something special that he could corral like 50, 60 people to do these massive choreographic works. They're not the only thing that he's done, but there's something really, really interesting and cool about that. But yeah.
Ralph, you also talked about his pitch channel but there's also a much larger resource. I think you may have mentioned, I may have misheard, but his Johnny's Bandcamp page is massive. It has, in addition to more recent things that he's doing, and but it has all of like 40 years worth. I don't know if it's exhaustive, but it's 40 years worth of those of live festivals in New York that he's kind of mixed and matched, and them in different albums, you might say, and it's all there. I mean, it's you kind of have to wade through it because it's not like clear what year this was, and it's not necessarily what was on the program that night, the same things, but I think he refers to it as the largest microtonal recording resource in the world, and I'm sure that's correct.
Yeah, I've been there and I've used that resource. Yeah, I also find it a bit difficult to sort through, but I do agree that I think that the presence of all this documentation, having all that video that's been shot from the 90s and so on is just wild. And the fact that, I mean, if we're going to talk about documentation, let's talk about the Universe Symphony really quickly. They wouldn't let him have that recording from Alice Tully Hall. So he had to go back and spend like the next, 8 years essentially putting that together again, and like, just like fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting and making stuff happen. I mean, this is someone who's just like keeps on, just working on it no matter what. And my favorite anecdote coming out of all of this is when I first did this talk, Johnny posted about it on Facebook and everything. This is with College Music Society, I think for CMS South Central, the Texas, usually Texas based one. And his high school band teacher posted or did a reply to it. And here's what's so great. This teacher had insisted to Johnny he should not learn to play bassoon because he was so short. And even then, Johnny just said, no, I'm going to learn bassoon. You can't stop me. And that teacher was like, yeah, I guess you were right. I'm really glad you stuck with that bassoon. I thought that was adorable. And this is 2021, like it's adorable that was happening, back at John Dewey High School. So
that's
just
incredible. His teacher was still living.
I agree. I was.
Yeah. I mean, mine are long gone, but related to his age, my question is, did he work with Harry Partch or is he too young?
He as far as I understand, I don't think he really gets the bug until the late 70s, and Partch is deceased by then. But he's dealing with Lou Harrison, and he's talking with Lou. I think he met them. He met Lou, I think, in like January or February of '86 at a conference. It was something like that. And hey, if you're ever on the West Coast, come by and see me. And Johnny being Johnny winds up on the West Coast and visits them in NorCal, and yeah. And it must have been just like it's walking into like, Scrooge McDuck's treasure vault, walking into Lou Harrison's score library, to see all these things, it must have been incredible.
Mhm.
But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. And I thank you for your time. I appreciate all the insights and questions. Colleen, thank you for your expertise. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for being with us, Ralph. Great to see you.
Great to see you too.
To Johnny Reinhard, to the maestro, if you talk to him. And yeah, we are 5 minutes ahead, but if you're okay with that, Ryan, we can have this little bit of time extra just in case we have more questions or whatever. And yeah, so our next presentation is by Ryan Pratt. Yes. Okay, so Ryan Pratt is a composer and educator based in New York. He has composed for New York City ensembles, including ensemble Pamplemousse. It could be that I make a lot of pronunciation mistakes continuously. I try to read as fast as I can. I apologize in advance. So Wet Ink, New Thread Quartet, Chartreuse String Trio, Thalet Ensemble, Yorn Wire, and several soloists. His works explore the acoustic space of instruments through a perspective of proportional relationships. This approach is expressed in his dissertation in an article published in September 2023 issue of the music theory journal Tempo. In the summer of 2023, he had the opportunity to do a residency in Molokai, Hawaii, where he studied pre-colonial Polynesian instruments. Ryan holds a Doctor of Musical Arts degree in composition from Columbia University, where he currently teaches music humanities. He also teaches courses in music, in film and graphic notation at Montclair State University and Hunter College, CU, New York. And so the topic, the title of Brian's presentation is Relative Intonation, Non-Symmetrical Implications of Linear and Logarithmic Intervallic Measurements. So please, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Ryan Pratt, Dr. Ryan Pratt. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you so much, Augustin. Thank you for having me, and thank you to the Ecmelic Society for having this event. This is a great opportunity to discuss with you all my approach and to offer some tools that perhaps we can all benefit from. So let me make sure I can share. I've already put the article that this talk is entirely based on in the chat there that you mentioned. Okay, so if I go to share, and I know I have to check this box, share sound. All right, am I able to share the screen? Let's see. Okay, it looks like it. Okay, so there's the article.
So this is the program.
Okay, do you see my screen? Loading.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, it's there? Okay, great. Okay, so relative intonation as opposed to just intonation is the terminology that I've sort of adopted and is part of my dissertation as well. And as you can see from the title here, I'm sort of making an argument against a symmetrical perspective that I'm sure we're all well aware of. So this is non-symmetrical implications of both linear and logarithmic intervallic measurements. Okay, let me hide this for a second. Okay, so there are 4 sections of this article / talk, and I'll talk about issues of notation, the measurement of pitch and interval spaces, and also variations in instrumental tuning, which intersect in this orchestration-led approach to composition. I'll present a non-symmetrical perspective of intervallic measurement and discuss a few microtonal practices, as well as a perspective of 12-tone equal temperament, the microtonal perspective of that. While I don't intend to impose any new standard for microtonal notation, I'll outline some limitations of each unit of measurement, whether it's linear pitch language or logarithmic ratios, only in order to discuss the structural limitations of each one of these units of measurement, and most of the time to be able to use them both in conjunction simultaneously. So to begin, I use an approximate microtonal staff notation, as you'll see throughout the presentation, rather than something that we're probably all pretty familiar with, like the Helmholtz-Ellis microtonal accidentals. While these microtonal accidentals are perfect for a lot of scores, I found them too specific and to include only partial to fundamental intervals within prime number limits. So here are some of these. I'm sure you've seen this page. There are like 80 or more of these different symbols. Another issue I'm sure some of you have dealt with is communicating through notation to performers, and most performers, a lot of performers, unless you're Johnny Reinhard, are not necessarily familiar with all of these specific prime limit microtonal accidentals, right? So just as an introduction here, kind of explaining some of the notation you'll see and why it's actually approximate rather than these very specific intervals. Okay, so developed, of course, by Mark Sabat and Wolfgang von Schweinitz. The unnatural intervals also, this is sort of my plea. So the extended Helmholtz-Ellis JI pitch notation can account for the, quote, natural intervals within the span of 6 octaves, 1 to 64, right? First 1 to 2, 1 octave, 4 to 8 to 16 to 32 would be 5 octaves. I'm not counting right. 1 to 2 is the first octave, right? And then 2 to 4, second. And then, yeah, it's written there, 8 to 16, 32. I'm still not counting right. Anyway, 6 octaves should be 1 to 64. However, the other intervals within this range that do not stem from multiples of the fundamental, so after 1, we've got 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, are not so precisely expressible without additional sense indication anyway. The expressible intervals include those within an octave multiple of the fundamental in one of their integers, such as 16 to 31, or 17 to 32, or 8 to 15. So in their approach, these are called tunable intervals, and these are listed in bold in the next figure. So only the bold are quote unquote tunable intervals, and all of the other intervals here that are not in bold exist within the numerical space of 5 octaves, 1 to 32. So these are all the numerical intervals in 5 octaves, and this is kind of the basis of my approach in lieu of a prime limit, like, a 5 limit or 7 or 13, generally an odd number. I've chosen a limitation of octaves and working within that space. I've also organized these lists, and there's a list of many more intervals that goes up to partial 256, 8 octaves of space. I've listed them in increasing/decreasing adjacent order. And you'll see that later, this is for issues of comparison and intervallic reinterpretation. I'm not interested in, drastically reinterpreting intervals, as we've all heard pieces played on the piano where, C to B flat is supposed to be the 7th partial or something way off, right? Rather, intervals that might be just a couple of cents off, and the possibility of harmonically reinterpreting them for microtonal progressions. So this is the limitation I use for notation. It's an approximate 8th tone notation because 48 different pitch accidentals are generally only what's required for my notation. Performers have an easier time reading it as well. And once again, intervallic reinterpretation at distances less than you would require even a new accidental. You're moving by 3 or 4 cents or something like that. You might write plus 3 cents, but probably not a whole new accidental. This is the Omicron font, if you're using some notation software. Okay, so I think I've made this point clear enough to actually get into it. One of the resources is this adjacent interval chart. I showed you a shorter interval chart, but this is the big one. So this chart includes 8 octaves of space, 1 to 256, plus just a couple of more intervals right near the end of the octave and the beginning of the octaves. So this document lists 9,966 unique intervals within 8 octaves. These are all the numerical intervals that exist within this space, listed in ascending, descending order. And you've got the ratios there to, very far decimal point, because some of them are very close to one another. And I wanted to make sure that, they were in the right order. I had to go very far to calculate all of these. So for example, let's see if this works on this computer. You can search for an interval, and there's one everybody knows, 2 to 3, right? So it's 701.9, et cetera, cents. And you can see all the other intervals that approach this perfect fifth and fall a little short. There's a little bit of space in between 701 and 705 here, but if you look, I was kind of interested to see in making this chart how close exactly all the intervals were, and all the other intervals are generally within, not even a cent, small cent. So in terms of intervallic ambiguity, reinterpretation, this chart has been very helpful for some of my compositions. Okay. So in contrast to an approach of prime limits, like those you see in Parch, my question was, intervals / numbers are of course infinite, but what are all of the unique in size intervallic distances listed within an octave limit, whether you have 5 octaves or 6 or 8. So the interval charts by Helmholtz and Parch in his Genesis of Music, the monophonic fabric chart, includes 340 intervals within a prime number limit and some additional intervals that are made up of multiples of these intervals that include very high number ratios, such as 53,144, or no, 531,441 to 542,288, right? Whereas my adjacent interval chart includes all the intervals, tunable or not, numerically available within the 8-octave space, which is just around 10,000 unique intervals. I've got a picture here of the monophonic fabric chart. Sorry. Give me 1 second. Well, let me click the link. Sorry, bear with me. So it's here already. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So you can see these giant ratios sort of stand out. And of course, it turns out that these are just multiples of smaller prime number limits. So if you break down these gigantic ratios, you'll find 2 to 3, added to itself, 40 times or more, something like that, which is where you get this pretty ridiculous looking interval there. Okay, so we'll go back to the talk. I'm just dealing with this Zoom bar coming down here and it prevents me from, okay. Okay, so fairy sequences. I came across what is known as a fairy sequence in the process of my research, and we're probably all familiar with these things from James Tenney's music, for example. This is the calculation to the ratio to sense that I use to make the charts there. Okay, so in the process of calculating and converting all of the intervals within 8 octaves of numerical space, I stumbled onto the structure known as Fairy sequence, named after John Ferry Sr. And there's a Fairy sequence generator here that anybody can use. And you can just go to numerator, and let's just make a short one to 11. Nope, sorry, it should be denominator. Okay, so you get this sequence here. And speaking of symmetry, this is a symmetrical sequence. I'll show you in notation here. This is the sequence written on top here. If you were to draw polygons to divide a single octave, to also calculate different temperaments, if you 3-tone equal temperament, 4-tone, all the way up to 11-tone here, we've got all these polygons. It actually also forms a Fairy sequence. And in notation here, if we split this circle and pretend this is a string, we would get this Fairy sequence, assuming the string of a cello was only limited to the 11th partial, right? Of course, there are many higher partials that would pop out. This is the sequence that you would hear if you played harmonics all the way across the string, And here's some of the notation one would use to tell a cellist where to put their finger to get this partial, for example, the fifth partial, or the octave, etc. So you can see the symmetry of this, of course, the octave point here, and this is just a simple Fairy sequence to the 11th partial. The other device here, apart from the adjacent interval chart, is something I created back in 2014. It is actually a handheld paper tool that my wife was amazingly able to turn into this digital version here, which is available on my website or this link here. And as you can see, I'm moving the mouse so that I can move this ring. And let's just keep it in C to keep it simple. And I might have to zoom in a little bit here, but you can see all the partial numbers extending all the way up to 256, 8 octaves of space here. So once again, for 2 to 3 relationship, you'd look to the 3 right around here. And of course, that extends down to a G that is about 2 cents sharp of the G. So of course, you can use this to convert any of the ratios within this 8 octave space and to temperament in terms of notation. And I've got 1200 cents around here and approximate eighth tones, though once again, I wouldn't ever tell anyone which type of microtonal notation to use. This just happens to be my choice, and I'll show some reasons why. Let's see. Okay, so in lieu of constructing harmonies from standard fundamentals, 12-tet only, which I feel like is almost all that I see in microtonal music, because it's convenient, right? I'm interested in the opportunity to use microtonal fundamentals. So this intervallic data, ratio, and sense can be used for things like very close motion, microtonal harmonic pivots, or extensive use of natural harmonics within instrumentation, which is why I consider my approach an instrument-led, orchestration-led approach to composition, where I generally investigate the instruments and find specific microtonal intervals that exist between natural harmonics and maybe even tempered notes, and interpret them as closely as I can. So in several compositions, I've used the instruments as harmonic filters in the process of forming harmonic structures. And this involves making use of the microtonal distances found within combinations of instruments and also reinterpreting the relatively near 100-cent intervals that we find on pianos and other equally tempered instruments. I'll talk a little bit about the ambiguity there. In my perspective of equal temperament was changed, or I was very happy really to find this article from, I think, the 1940s, maybe even earlier, by Lloyd, by LLS Lloyd, called The Myth of Equal Temperament. I might reinterpret it as the ambiguity of temperament in my approach, but he uses the word myth very interestingly. This discusses the variation in piano tuning and also that of 12-tone equal temperament, showing the ambiguity and the interpretation of the intervals within what is commonly known as equal temperament. So this article asked me which ratios exist at these near 100-cent distances and how much wiggle room is there, how much ambiguity, which it insisted that I make this chart and really find out, all the distances in there. Okay, and at the end, if I can squeeze all this in, I'll also discuss another influence, maybe from a surprising resource, a jazz pianist, improviser, Barry Harris, who had his own interesting scale that became very famous and is all over YouTube and lots of master classes. You can see him and his students now give. Since he passed just recently. He has an 8-note major scale that is his 8-note 6th diminished scale that influenced me to develop my own microtonal scales and use a similar procedure to create a scale of chords. So this goes beyond the limitations of temperament. and the limitations really of any number of notes in a scale. You can make scales of chords with any kind of limit. So I'll come back to that in more detail here. So we're at the beginning of my article, though I gave a long introduction here. I'll just try to get through this. So the article investigates intervallic measurement, the tacit limitations engendered by a prevalent symmetrical perspective of measuring intervals, various numerical and instrumental limitations, and further detail of harmonic melodic structures such as fairy sequences are illustrated. This approach distinguishes itself from a perspective of prime limits explored by Harry Partch and others. The standardization of microtonal notation is not suggested. Rather, the restrictions provided by any such standardization are re-examined through an objective lens of ratios to harness the generative potential of numbers. An orchestration-led approach to composition is described where the tuning limitations of instruments are utilized for idiomatic composition, ideally. Tuning practices that evade the octave are also discussed, including gamelan, mbira, and 3 scales found by Wendy Carlos. The article concludes with a section on the construction of harmonic systems in the absence of instrumental influences. So the instrument-led approach is the bulk of my approach, but I thought, what if I don't listen to the limitations of the instruments and purely devise structures based on numbers, numerical limits alone? Of course, you get a very different kind of music. And so I explored that as well with the microtonal scales of chords that I'll discuss. Okay, so some usual figures here, Harry Partch and James Tenney there. And one of the earliest resources I could find that shows this idea of a symmetrical perspective that later composers like Harry Partch and James Tenney seem to take up themselves was from Jean-Philippe Rameau in the mid-18th century. So we've got the quote here from Partch: "Symmetry is inherent in a monophonic scale. It is not planned, it is inevitable." Okay. And Jean-Philippe Rameau's book, I tried to track down this picture because I remember seeing it from years ago. There's an illustration on the cover of one of the editions of this book that has something like this, much less modern here, a symmetrical diagram that shows the 4-5-6 triad mirrored around a C, so that you see, the C major triad here. I've got, the microtonal accidentals that would indicate the 5th partial is a little flat, etc. So you've got this mirrored around a C, right? So it would be -4-5-6 here, and you get the quote unquote minor scale, because his argument was that minor was, a natural kind of property that was, of course, rejected by the Academy of Science at that point. And this put forth a notion of dual generators. So although Rameau's symmetrical justification was rejected by the Academy of Science, several theorists and composers have continued to put forth this conception that includes undertones. And as Bob Fillmore pointed out in Changing the Metaphor, James Tenney disagreed with Harry Partch on the undertonal origin of the minor triad. The problem with the U-tonality configuration, as Tenney sees it, lies in the ambiguity surrounding the root. But roots can be disambiguated by measuring intervals independently of any relationship they may have to a centralized pitch identity. Nevertheless, even though Tenney sort of pointed this out, you can't necessarily figure out, what the root is. Tenney also constructed many diagrams and a lot of incredible, beautiful music, similarly with these symmetrical crystalline structures in his own practice. I might skip a couple of the sound files here, but they're all included and linked in the article. Okay, so this is another diagram that would reinterpret this sort of negative undertone calculation here for a measurement that actually produces not 2 dual generators, but 4 different harmonic implications if we saw this diagram as a whole here. Okay, so figure 1 shows one just minor triad as both negative partial relationships in 5-limit tuning, extending downwards, -5, or -4, 5, 6, and as positive integers, which would equate to 10, 12, 15. Right, same exact distances, we're just not using negative and positive numbers in the same system. So I'm calling this objective intervallic measurement, and this is why I use the term relative intonation instead of just intonation. I think there's an important distinction to make. So figure 1 reveals not 2 dual generators, but 4 possible harmonic implications of the mirrored triad collection of 5 pitches. The C, D flat, up arrow, F, and A flat, up arrow, are each implied as roots from this aggregate. You can see here, these are the fundamental implications here. If we just sort of notate all the same intervallic distances with the higher partials multiples of the octaves that they would equate to. So if this entire 5-note collection is viewed from the perspective of a single harmonic generator, however, the fundamental implication is this low D flat up arrow. And all of the partials would perfectly fit into this 1, 40, 48, 60, 75, 90. This audio is pretty boring. I'll just skip sort of playing this. Parch's famous 7 or 11 limit diamond marimba here, of course, reflects this overtonal and undertonal symmetrical perspective, and several times includes the intervallic set 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 11 across the diagonals of this instrument. One of the funny things about this instrument is that all 6 of these middle bars are the same note. But it makes a lot of sense if you are playing the instrument and have a diagonal understanding, whether it's up and to the right or down and to the right, that you get, a kind of quote unquote major or quote unquote minor just intonation up to the 11th limit here. There's a great video here. I believe this should just be a couple seconds long so that we can understand this instrument here pretty quickly.
Intonation. It's not an invention of Parch's, even though he's often credited for it. It showed up about 15 or 20 years before he really started working with just intonation. But what this does is takes just a series of pure just intervals and arranges them into this matrix. So if we start on this pitch, which is our G, we're back to 1-1 here, and go in a diagonal line moving up and to the right, we go just up the overtone series of G, arranged in thirds. Does everyone follow what I mean so far? Great. So the overtone series of G, we're going up by thirds. So here's our major third, our perfect fifth, the dominant 7th, a 9th, and 11th. Going down and to the right, we just invert all of these. So this is basically our major. Going down and to the right, we invert these. So down the major third, down the perfect fifth, which gives us our minor sound, 7th, 9th, and 11th. What's interesting about it is that from there, from each of these 6 pitches, if you move on the diagonal plane that it lies on, you get that same overtone series. From all of these, if you move down and to the right, you get that same inverse of that series. He calls it an undertone series, which technically is not a real thing, but as a theoretical principle, it's good to have the opposite of all of these overtones. And so what that means as a keyboard instrument is that if you play across one of these rows left to right, the pitches don't appear to go in any particular order because it's all about how they fit into this harmonic matrix. But again, this is the basic principle of just intonation, and for a composer who's trying to figure out this system, and I don't necessarily mean Parch when I say that because he was already well into just intonation.
Okay, so what I've done here is instead of, as Parch thought about this, overtones and undertones, investigated the aggregate as an entire singular collection here, and numerically, of course, without changing any of the intervals, just using higher octave multiples to show them in ascending order. I won't read all these numbers, but you've got from 16 to what would be 11 times 11. The very top note here, 121, right? And these are all the intervals there as a whole. Of course, this instrument, as Charles Corey here just pointed out, just simply repeats 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 11 across the diagonals there. So there is the nearest to the closest eighth tone accidental possible approximate eighth tone notation, what this thing looks like on the staff. And then here it is ascending if you put all the pitches in ascending order. And we've got actually 6 Gs there in the middle. I just put 2. So you can see the symmetry, of course, inherent to this instrument.
Intonation.
Okay, so I've already introduced this Maya device thing. And there it is. This is just a deeper explanation of this thing. I think I've already gone over this. So with regard to representations in notation, I may have already made this point as well with regard to the tunable intervals of the Helmholtz-Ellis just intonation, which accounts for the quote-unquote natural intervals within the span of 1 to 64. In this notation system, dozens of specific microtonal accidentals are used to reference a tuning relationship with a fundamental. While specific, this notation can have the effect of limiting a composer from utilizing the same notated partial as another partial of a different fundamental. For this reason, instead of using partial specific and more complex additive microtonal accidentals, my approach uses a limited number of microtonal accidentals to approximate an unlimited number of proportional relationships. This approach to notation greatly reduces the number of microtonal accidentals while welcoming harmonic reinterpretation. An approximate notation system also means that relative intervallic constructions can be explored to imply microtonal fundamentals, where a symmetrical approach to notation can have the unfortunate effect of tacitly restricting one's construction of harmonies, encouraging composers to build harmonic structures only on known standard 12-tet fundamentals from the fundamental up the overtone series, in lieu of utilizing the real measured ratios of intervals found on any specific instrument, even tempered instruments. For these reasons, in the following approach to notation, the number of accidentals used to modify the known note names, 12-tet note names, are reduced to an arrow, which indicates approximately plus or minus 25 cents, and 2 quarter-tone symbols to indicate approximately plus or minus 50 cents. More precisely, the arrows are used to indicate a microtonal deviation that ranges between plus minus 12.5 cents and 38.5 cents, at which point over 38.5 cents, you would see a quarter tone. That would be the nearest accidental for that. In contrast to lists of intervals produced by Helmholtz on the sensation of tone, or those of Partch's monophonic fabric, the article's appendix includes all the intervals numerically available to a limited range of octaves. And when all the different intervals within a certain range are listed, the structure I mentioned earlier, known as a fairy sequence, is produced. For example, below are listed all the intervals numerically available to 1 to 32, 5-octave range, in descending in size order within a single octave. So this is probably hard to see because it's zoomed out, but it's sort of important to see the shape of this and that this shows what's called a fairy sequence. It's kind of zoomed in here. This is a partial view of this, but what's going on here, and maybe I can even zoom in here, is we have all of the intervals just within 5 octaves. It should be listed on, showed the list earlier. They are in the middle staff here, from largest to smallest, so the octave, and then the next down would be 16 to 31, just about a quarter tone below an octave. And it continues all the way to the unison on the right side, right? And we have sum and difference tones. So combination tones, which form a fairy sequence that looks very much symmetrical, but these are not undertones, to be clear, on the bottom. These are the difference tones of the middle intervals there. So This might make a little bit more sense to play this example. Got audio of this, a couple of versions. This one should be a little slower. Okay, so that one's a little slow, but when it's sped up and repeated, it sounds a little bit more fun. Okay, so it played through the cycle a couple of times there. Let me just check the chat. Am I coming through okay? Okay, 3 minutes. Wow. Okay, sorry. This is longer than, let me get through this. Okay, so some James Tenney notation there. You can see the fairy sequence within the notation of these spectral canon pieces. And these are the lists that I discussed. So I'm just barely getting to the second part of this. Didn't organize this fast enough. Let me move through this quickly here. These are some very early 12 tone equal temperament measurements. The earliest resource I could find is from 122 BCE in China from a resource known as the Huainanzi. And there's some other people there that we've heard of. Instrumental filters. Okay, so the Maya device, I think most importantly, is best used to calculate based on microtonal fundamentals. And then with this approach, you can re-examine the piano and make use of the instruments, of the intervals that exist on the instrument where the fundamental does not exist, right? So you can't have the fundamental, but you can interpret other notes as collections of upper partials and generate very resonant chords, even if, you know, they're a couple of cents off. So I've had a lot of fun with that. And this is another diagram that shows just how the overtone series would align with temperament and which partials would be within just a couple of cents to pass through this filter. So if you had a fundamental, right, at G, obviously these are the closest that are somewhat approximate within a couple of cents. The third partial, the ninth partial, 15, 57 even is very close to that seventh, minor seventh interval. And then you can see plus 18 cents, you know, you get a different arrangement of the tempered notes that fall just within a couple of cents within that series there. And you can develop progressions sort of based on this. This is a diagram from the Lloyd article, which shows the ambiguity, I would say, of equal temperament here, and of course, the stretched tuning of the piano. Calculating virtual intervals, and maybe I'll try to conclude with this about approaching orchestration initially and finding some of the harmonic intervals that are available, harmonics in brass instruments, string instruments, and utilizing them in composition. So I'll skip the clip here, but I've got several pieces that explore this technique, one of which is a small ensemble piece called Invariance, small orchestra, I should say. And with this example here, you can see the collection of string harmonics that for this fundamental would equate to these partials. And these are the tempered instruments that fill in the same chord and include these partials, and then a couple of extra tones that either I've asked the flutist to bend a note or use a different fingering or something like that to achieve these chord progressions that are pretty reliable because they make use of natural harmonics. So I don't have to tell a player tune 45 cents sharp or something like that. They just touch the harmonic and the tuning is automatic, right? So I'll probably, for the sake of time, have to skip some of the measurements I've done in this article of gamelan instruments and mbira, which is something I've spoken about in the past when we interviewed a couple of mbira players from Zimbabwe. I found it fascinating, the differences in the tuning of these instruments and the variation between villages and even within the same instrument, the tuning variation. So forgive me for not being fast enough or having too much to talk about here, but perhaps I can post the rest of this as a resource. And at the end, my article discusses these scales of chords in absence of any kind of instrumental influence here, where I'm generating, maybe if I have time to just play one of these scales of chords here. Okay, I'll stop sharing now. Thank you, everybody.
Congratulations. Great. Thank you so much. And yeah, sorry I had to coordinate this and I have to.
No, it's my fault for going too long. Do we have any time?
And really, congratulations and thank you so much for presenting this amazing work that you have been doing for so long and sharing this. And congratulations, especially for the Maya device. It's really impressive. And also, as a composer, I'm very happy that you, for example, that you use harmonics with the strings and you make it easier for the players, because I find this a big problem. In the theory, everything is beautiful, but then in the practical way, we find problems, especially when we write for other people. So really, congratulations. We have still 6 minutes, so I would like to ask in the group if you have any questions for Ryan Pratt, please. Yes, Yuri, please.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, thank you very much. It was fascinating. And I'm wondering, could you maybe elaborate a bit on orchestration? So how you approach that? And do you have to tune instruments, or if that's, for example, a violin or keyboard? Because you mentioned that you have a couple of or a few compositions already written.
Yes, so I almost never do scordatura. I did scordatura in one piece for 3 strings, and all the strings were retuned, and it actually worked out okay, even though it was a headache to notate twice, right? But generally, I work with the instruments in their standard tunings, and for like a violin or a violin family instrument, I'll use the 7 harmonics for a single string that are generally pretty reliable. Most advanced players of contemporary music can easily get the 7th partial with some practice. And I've been working with an incredible violinist, Marina Kitherstein in New York, who's part of the TAC ensemble and a few others. And I've got a couple of pieces of hers recorded on my SoundCloud page where I deduced the structure of the entire piece based on those harmonics, and then her incredible ability to find the other microtones just on the fingerboard itself.
And what about piano or organ?
So for piano, actually, yeah, years ago I did do one piece where I had a piano technician retune like 30 different keys of the piano. But ever since then, I've been more interested in using the piano in its standard tuning, and instead finding a microtonal fundamental that will then generate what I think are really interesting chords that I couldn't have come up with otherwise, that are, harmonic chords that don't have a fundamental on the piano. You can have a double bass in your ensemble and they can play the microtonal fundamental if you want it, or have it supplied electronically, or not have it at all. And so I've written a few pieces that are sort of tempered and microtonal at the same time, because they imply the fundamentals. Sometimes you can hear very clearly by playing, partial, you're actually playing like 33 and 47 and 68 and all these high harmonics, and you get these very brilliant harmonic chords that have a lot of difference tones and things like that can really pop out depending on the variation of that piano's tuning, right? And because it's all ambiguous. I was just at another residency visiting my wife in Switzerland, and happy to find that there was this pipe organ in this 500-year-old house we were staying in. And so I started to play it, and I was playing some of these chords on there and got such incredible difference tones that the fundamentals were really clear. I'm just playing a tempered chord on an ancient instrument. And so it's one way to use the Maya device to sort of find these other chords.
Thank you. I would love to listen to it acoustically. Sounds beautiful.
Thank you for your question.
Maybe we have still 2 minutes for one last question, maybe. Still somebody? And by the way, you showed this video of Charles Corey. Is he also, we lost track here of his work. Is he still curating the instruments of Harry parts? Do you know?
I'm not sure. I think that video is on YouTube from just a few years ago. But yeah, as far as I know, he was the last one curating those instruments, which were in New Jersey until a while ago. And then they were sent to the West Coast of the US, I believe. But I haven't kept in touch with that.
I was just curious because we lost track as well. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know personally.
I've heard from Chuck in the last couple of years. I think he's on the East Coast now.
Okay.
But I believe he's still curating them. Yeah, I've been meaning to reach out to him. It was great to see him in there. Thank you for your presentation, Ryan. It was really cool.
Yeah, thank you as well. I saw Johnny Reinhard several years back give a presentation at Columbia, which was very much welcomed.
Awesome.
Yeah, so otherwise, the next questions we can leave on the chat, on the Facebook Ecmelix page, and I'm sure you can continue with questions in case you have some more. And yeah, so Ryan, thank you so much. Congratulations for this great presentation. Congratulations on your work, and thank you so much for being with us. And
thank you. Likewise.
So we would like to continue. Very well timing. And yeah, so we are continuing with Luís da Costa. And with the booklet, yes. So, Luís, Neto.
I will apologize and say that I need to do some teaching now, but I will be back. So,
yes. Okay. Thank you.
Bye for now.
Yeah. See you later. So, Luís Neto da Costa, Microtonality, Rhythm and Live Electronics in Rust. So, Luís Neto da Costa is a Portuguese composer dedicated to broadening instrumental vocabulary and developing techniques based on the harmonic series, a primary focus on his doctoral research. He has collaborated with several musicians to explore extended techniques, including muffled sounds for clarinet, pivot finger multiphonics for saxophone, and distinctive sound qualities of the violin body. He often develops computer-aided composition tools and occasionally incorporates electronic into his compositions, with recent projects involving the creation of video scores. His compositions have been performed by renowned ensembles and orchestras, including Ensemble Suono Giallo, Ensemble Research, Aleph Guitar Quartet. They were with us in 2017, by the way. Son d'Arte, Electric Ensemble, Remix Ensemble, Porto Symphony Orchestra, Lisbon Metropolitan Orchestra, and Arsen ad hoc, among others. He has received commissions from several prestigious institutions, such as Progetto DME, so this is Días de Música Electrónica de Jaime Reis, our friend as well, and Casa da Música, I'm just guessing, where he was resident artist, as well as MISO, Music Festival delle Nazioni, Arte no Tempo, Portuguese Composers Association, and Antena 2. To date, he has been honored with 9 composition awards, which include the Francisco de la Cerda Composer Prize by Millennium BCP Foundation. You can continue reading some more information about his achievements at the booklet, and I don't want to take any more time by Luís Neto, so please welcome Luís Neto. Thank you, Luís.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So I will be analyzing a piece I composed last year. So I'll just share the PowerPoint presentation. Okay. Okay. For some reason, the video optimization is not working, but I think it will work. Let's see.
Okay. It looks good.
Yeah,
It looks
that's
perfect.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the project was developed in collaboration with the professors from the postgraduate program in applied composition in Lisbon. Pianist Alex Wade contributed to discussions and helped explore the piano preparation, while composer Michele Tardini provided the software T-Monster, which I later adapted to create the electronics of the piece. So these ones were the professors of this program, and the piece was made in this context. So Rust is different from my earlier works because it includes microtonality in piano. I avoided playing inside the instrument. The piece uses the harmonic series for rhythm and time signatures, incorporates small nuanced changes in durations, allows free interpretation of dynamics, uses a video score instead of a traditional one, employs additive synthesis to mimic the piano sound, and it also has a kind of delicate contemplative atmosphere, which is a kind of different from the works I've been doing. So I will start to speaking about the tuning strategy. So since the piece is built from 3 harmonic series that happen simultaneously, I had to use microtonal tunings to get as close as possible to the actual frequencies of each pitch. Out of 34 notes used in total, 10 are detuned using small spherical magnets, 2 are detuned using a kind of adhesive material, 4 are produced as harmonics by placing adhesive at specific notes on the string, and the remaining 18 notes are standard untuned pitches. So this is kind of a mix of several timbres, and this mix naturally leads to a variety of timbral colors. So all microtonal tunings had to be fixed, as it was not feasible to retune during the performance. I tested many fundamental frequencies and partials to find the most appropriate detuning for each pitch. And some options were discarded, not just for musical reasons, but because they didn't work with a one detuning per note setup. So to find the right detuning method, I tried a variety of magnets, screws, and other objects. Most of them altered the pitch too much, produced two pitches, which was not desirable, caused rattling, or dampened too much. In the end, the best result came from using a kind of 5mm nickel-plated spherical neodymium magnets, which have a kind of 300 grams holding force. And I bought these on a German shop called Super Magnet, which Alex known the shop because he also bought a lot of magnets to test several extended techniques. And this gave a stable pitch with minimal timbre alteration, resulting in a sound somewhere between a gamelan and an old piano, which inspired the piece's title, Rust. Because of the magnetic force and the limited space between the strings of a single note, it wasn't feasible to use two magnets per note. They repelled each other or were placed in different positions on the string, causing different notes. So the solution was to use a single magnet for each note along with una corda pedal. I know this pedal doesn't work perfectly on all pianos. Still, the slight detuning from the string that should be muted can add some interest to the sound, so it wasn't a major issue. Two other notes had to be tuned with a kind of adhesive like patafix in the agrafes of the strings, because magnets didn't work, didn't have enough strength to cause this pitch detuning. And this slightly muffled the sound, but pitch remained clear. And four more notes were played as harmonics by applying a great amount of adhesive at the exact nodal points on the lower strings. This produced high partials that matched or nearly matched the desired pitches. Other pitches remained unchanged due to minor differences, such as the variation of 2 cents in the third harmonic. So the piece is written for 6 voices, grouped in pairs. Each pair, one high and one low voice, shares the same harmonic series, remaining unaltered from the beginning to the end of the piece. The fundamentals are 3 piano notes, the lowest A, the lowest C, and the second highest B. Each voice has only a few different harmonics with just a limited number of notes. The lower voices mainly use the first to 8th harmonics, while the upper voice focuses on higher harmonics from the 21st to 26th. So the harmonics were selected using a 4-number sequence applied through simple arithmetic operations. In the first and second voices, the operations -1, +1, +2, +3 were applied with the pivot partial 23. This produced partials 22, 24, 25, and 26. In the third voice, the arithmetic operations were slightly different. As you can see, -2, -1, +1, +2, resulting in partials 20, 21, 22, 24, and 25. And the 23rd partial was intentionally left out of the upper voices because there were no piano strings left to detune in that harmonics range. And detuning during the performance was not possible, so one of the partials had to be removed. The same arithmetic logic is applied for the lower voices, but with simpler set of sums, 0, 1, 2, and 3. In addition, higher voices have a fixed pivot partial, while the fourth and fifth voices have changed their pivot partial, leading to difference in the range of harmonics. This means that the fourth voice covers the first 8 harmonics, the fifth voice uses the first 6, and the sixth voice only uses the first 4 harmonics. Regarding the 3 highest voices, only 4 harmonics are used, at most 5, which I will explain on the next slide. The pitch selection is done by converting the twin Pratt series, which is constituted by elements 0, 1, 2, and 3, into arithmetic operations. In the example, the numbers 1, 2, 3, 1, and 2 are turned into +1, +2, +3, +1, and +2, resulting in the harmonics 24, 25, 26, 24, and 25. The second phrase or group continues the series, and even though it has few harmonics, a different type of permutation appears. The same process applies to all the voices, and everything is serialized. So, in the upper 3 voices, it was possible to add 1 extra harmonic to enrich the chord. However, due to the limited number of strings I could detune with magnets, I was only able to add 1 extra partial per voice, the 30th, 29th, and the 31st harmonics assigned to the first, second, and third voice respectively. I chose the harmonic 31 of A, which is A minus a quarter tone for the third voice, because it closely matches the 26th partial of C in 8-tone tuning, which is part of the harmonic series of the second and fifth voices. The difference between the two is about 15 cents. So since it wasn't possible to retune during the performance, the difference is a small tuning compromise. So in this piece, harmonic partials were not only used to choose pitches, but also to determine time signatures and note durations, since there's one note per measure. Each musical phrase always starts with a 1-by-1 time signature. After that, the time signatures are determined by 2 partials. The previous one becomes the numerator and the current one the denominator. For example, if a phrase uses partials 26, 24, 25, 24, and 25, the resulting time signatures would be what you are seeing on the screen. This causes the durations to have only a slight difference between the previous and next duration, unlike the traditional ratio differences in music, which are usually powers of 2 or 3. Moments between phrases are separated by a single 1-by-1 bar of rest, and its duration changes depending on the context. So, even though time signatures are derived from harmonic numbers, tempi can change freely from phrase to phrase. Each ppm value is calculated using the fundamental frequency and a chosen denominator value. Usually they are powers of 2, like 128, 256, and so on. But intermediate values between these values, such as 96, 192, are also possible. This shows how the BPM value of 384 is calculated and how different denominators influence the durations. In short, larger denominator causes a slower tempo, smaller denominator a faster tempo. This system allowed me to preserve harmonic logic and numeric determinism in the rhythm, while also keeping enough freedom to shape the duration, spacing, interval patterns, agogics, among other aspects. So, since the piece uses multiple independent time signatures and tempi at the same time, I had to rely on a proportional notation through a video score. Using only proportional notation on paper wouldn't be precise enough. it will be extremely hard for performers to play the rhythms accurately without significant rehearsals that would take months or years. I initially considered quantizing the durations, that is, converting them into a standard notation using tuplets and regular time signatures, but that would distort the phrasing, oversimplify the actual structure, and still result in complex rhythms that will not help at all. Instead, I built a video score with a fixed line that acts as a timing guide. The note should be played when it touches the line. So this approach let performers play with accuracy even without too much rehearsal. For example, in the last year in the Sound of Music Computing conference, the pianist that played this piece learned the piece in just 2 days. So this video shows the play version that includes only the notes for the pianist without the microtonal pitches. Time signatures are not displayed to prevent notation issues that are hard to fix in this interface because Bach library is still in development. So below you can see a lot of settings that you can hide elements, hide tuplets, for example, just to see to read it more clearly. So since the entire score was created within Max using the Bach library, I had to build a user-friendly interface that made it easy to input notes, rhythm, apply the twin prime series, and hear the playback. I used a spreadsheet with all these elements, which was then converted into notation. You can see that each phrase, you can input the fundamental, the partial, how many notes, the place where the twin prime series begins, the arithmetic operations, first time signature, the BPM denominator that gives the tempo, and if there's rest or harmonizing feature. There's also a slice feature I didn't use, but it was possible to do it also. And on the right side you can see the partials, even when there's a rest, because rests are there was no other option, so they are presented this way. So although the piece can be performed without electronics, I chose to include an electronics layer to enrich each note. These sounds are not live processed, but pre-rendered synthesized sounds that mimic the piano timbre. To create this, I studied some literature about the acoustic behavior of the piano and adapted T-Monster, a Max-based additive synthesizer by Michele Tadini, to meet my needs. I then generated 3 tracks for each note, which are triggered live by the Bach score interface during the performance. So basically, the score triggers each note for the electronics interface. The tracks were built to start together and fade gradually, moving from a complex timbre to a simple one. So the volume played by the pianist is monitored by a max patch, and it determines where the playback begins, giving the impression of the piano being processed in real time. So it was really difficult to do additive synthesis in real time because of computer processing issues. It's really a hard task to do that. So this strategy, it mimics a kind of real-time electronics. Yeah. So the louder the piano, the more complex and louder the sound will be. So you can see this the volume of each track that it descends. So if a note is louder, it will begin close to the beginning of each track. So the three tracks for each note can be labeled as simple, complex, and grained layers. In the simple layer, each sound is shaped to resemble a clear piano note. Everything is graphed to imitate the enharmonicity of the strings, the decay of partials, the noisy elements, and certain specific features, like the boosted fixed partials that add some color to the timbre. In the complex layer, the sound becomes richer by mimicking the natural detuning of two strings for each note, along with the sympathetic resonance of nearby strings and other enharmonic characteristics. And in the grain layer, the sound is broken into specialized fragments for added texture. It was possible to have a kind of a channel for this performance. And the grains are only kind of adding texture. So all voices in the piece use the same twin prime series. The series not used in its entirety, but there is a kind of hidden canon. Despite having a limited number of harmonics for each voice, the numerical series regularly varied the pitches and prevented boring repetition, acting like Brownian motion. The pitch material is somehow predetermined, but there was flexibility in shaping the piece by controlling note durations, how many notes appear in each phrase, and how long the rests are between phrases. This makes the piece responsive more to what's happening between voices than to each voice's internal structure. The goal was to build harmonic and melodic relationships that feel logical, both within each individual voice and between them, creating a balance between the abstract numerical structure and the music result we hear. So although the piece is rooted in a spectral approach, it explores microtonal scalar aspects. I chose the notes A, C, and B to create the microtonal intervals I wanted and to add an atonal feeling to the piece. The fundamentals are essential 0-1-3 pitch set in terms of set theory. I considered the different types of seconds, sevenths, and thirds. The variety of second and seventh intervals adds to the tonal feel and creates subtle beating effects between nearby pitches. In the case of thirds, various types are used when there's a harmonizing feature, which has a fixed partial while the others are moving. This results in a microtonal technique that resembles the duality of minor and major in polymodal chromaticism. We can say that all these changes in intervals are chromatic fluctuations of melodic microstructures, but at a microtonal level. Despite the cluster sets, there's a careful balance between consonance and dissonance. The wider spacing between C and B also contributes to this effect, and so does the distance between low and high harmonics. So this presentation has demonstrated how the harmonic series can be used as a generative framework across pitch, rhythm, and timbre, moving beyond traditional spectralist approaches. The pianos is reimagined through microtonal detuning and timbral transformation. The electronics do not function as an external layer, but as an extension of the instrument, reinforcing its spectral identity. Rather than aiming for constant perceptual clarity, the piece invites the listener into a space of layered relationships. It balances harmonic logic with microtonal intuition, structured with ambiguity, and offers a new way of thinking about different intersections. So in the remaining time, just to not only being me talking, I will play the premiere, which was played by Alex Wade. So it's about 8-9 minutes, so I think we have enough time to listen to it. It stopped? Yeah.
Yes, we don't hear also, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, because I stopped, they desynchronized or something, but I think we can understand the idea. Yeah. Thank you.
Congratulations, a very nice piece. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your work, Luis. And we have the timing is perfect. Thank you so much for trying how you're trying. And yeah, so I would like to ask in the group first if anyone has any questions for Luis Neto da Costa. Please, Yuri.
Yeah, I have a question. Yeah, first of all, it's a very, very nice piece. I really like it. And I'm wondering whether that was a aesthetical or otherwise like your decision to use so many times 24, 25, 26, because you also mentioned that was like a time signature and it is based on partials, some harmonic series. So, or does it have anything to do with Markov chain? Or I just wonder, could you please comment on that? So why so many times?
About the tweet, yeah, about the series, the serialized aspect. Is that your question about the series that is being used to determine?
Is it a coincidence that you use so many times 24, 25, and number 26 to like create a structure and metrical structure?
Yeah, in the upper voices, the available time signatures as well harmonics were just from the 21st to the 26th. So, for example, for the first voice, I think it will be better just to show it again.
Okay.
The presentation just to see what I'm doing here. So the first voice is 22, 24, 25, and 26. And this kind of this twin prime series, you are seeing this, which is basically prime numbers divided by 12. That gave kind of 4 elements I can use to serialize whatever I want. So they are I kind of doing operations with the pivot and giving results not just for the pitches are being used, but also to the harmonics. So what happens here is that you see a lot of repetitions because there are only these 4 elements, at most 5. And it's a kind of, if you see the series, it's a kind of unpredictable because it's random like the prime numbers, but at the same time it's not so random, and this aids me to give a kind of Brownian motion.
Okay. I see.
Thank you. Randomness. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And anyone would like to ask? Otherwise, Luis, you said that this work, Rust, was also possible to be played without electronics. Do you also have a recording of it without electronics that maybe we could compare and we could have a listen?
Yeah, probably I have just kind of rehearsal recording, and I have also recordings of the premiere that were made by some students in the school, but they are still not edited. So that's why I just show it to you, a kind of amateur recording of a camera with a lot of noise. Sorry for that, but it was the best option available. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Please, Yuri.
May I also add something just pop up in my mind? I just also is interesting. Could you imagine this piece of yours to be played on a MIDI controlled piano, like without any human interactions or human being sitting and playing? Or do you appreciate this human factor, the live performance? How do you relate to this?
Yeah. If it was played by a microtonal MIDI piano or
But
something.
it was both, right? So that was electronics layer and live performance.
Yeah. So basically, the pianist plays the piece that the video is moving. The pianist plays. And the max patch is capturing the velocity number. It's converting audio signal to a velocity number. So the electronics know the dynamics that will output the sounds or the layers, the electronics layer. So I think the advantage of having a pianist is that because he freely chooses the dynamics he is playing. I didn't wrote any dynamics at all to give this kind of freedom. And I think if you are converting this to a kind of MIDI version or something, you have to create a kind of performer version. So there's no point because yeah, even the performer perspective, there are some kind of small delays or something that can add some interest to it. But the main argument is about the free dynamics and how we can phrase the piece because he's seeing this kind of six voices and he could phrase and create different meanings between voices or between the internal structure of each voice. So that's the magic in it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any more questions, please? Okay. Yeah. Otherwise, because we still have 2 minutes, Luis. So you are based in Lisbon at the moment, right?
No, I'm based nearby Porto, but I'm doing the PhD in composition in Saloniki, in Greece. Yeah.
Okay. I'm okay. Probably I read it, but it's at the moment so much information.
No, it was
I
no,
forget. I tend to
the
forget.
biography was too long.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. But if you were at DMA, at DME, just the
Yeah.
Música Electroacústica. So I guess yeah. I guess you're in touch with Jaime. Jaime, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. He was
I
also.
attended his wedding, so
Uh,
yeah, we are friends. Yeah.
yeah. Many regards from the Ecmelics in Salzburg. Yeah, maybe
Thank you. I
Todd
will
met
send to
him.
him.
Actually, the year Todd was here, it could be. I forget everything more or less. So information, yeah, yeah. So if we have no more questions, I was just curious about your impressions before between this with electronics and non-electronics, but it's just a personal thing. Um, but yeah, maybe please share with us. I think we are in contact via Facebook or with the Ecmelics. If you have this version, I mean, if you remember, just in case, if you send me a link, I would like to listen also without the electronics to have an impression. Just
Yeah, I will try to find you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So if you're okay with that, well, we can have a little break to stretch 5 minutes. I would like to go down and up, just 5 minutes. And yeah, today the breaks, because of the timings in the States mainly, so the breaks are going to be very short, just 15 minutes. So at 6 p.m. we will continue. And if you're okay with that, we will make a little break now. And yeah, thank you, Luis, so much. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Beautiful music, beautiful piece. And thank you everyone for attending. And I will see you in 15 minutes. See you.
See you.